And tonight, my name is Diane Mumararungu, and I'm going to be your host tonight. And I work with Share Screen Africa as the East African coordinator at Share Screen Africa. And before I introduce my co-host, I want to welcome again people who are still joining us now. I want to welcome you to use the chat box so that you can introduce yourselves. Let us know your names, the organization or institution that you work with. We'll be happy to have you, to get to know you as well. So, like I mentioned, I'm not alone in the room. I have my co-host, my colleague Robert, who is going to share with us more about some of the upcoming talks that we have at Share Screen Africa and LCE. Robert, you're welcome.
Thank you, Diane. Good evening, everyone. It's so nice to see you all again here. Diane, if you can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. This Thursday on 28th of August at 7 p.m. South African time, we will be diving into a conversation that's very, very bold and necessary. And as you can see on your screen, the title is Uncomfortable Truths: From Corruption and Blame to Resilient Conservation Organization. So talking about leadership in conservation, this is a very suitable topic to be talked about. And it will be provided by two fantastic and experienced speakers who are Dr. Lindy Botter and Alastair Nelson. And they will be unpacking why corruption and misconduct are not just bad apples, but signs of deeper cracks within conservation systems. And more importantly, how we can build organizations that are ethical and resilient. So you don't want to miss this honest and thought-provoking session. And we cannot wait to welcome you all this Thursday at 7 p.m. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Robert. And yes, we really look forward to seeing many of you joining us on Thursday again. And again, my team is going to share the link for you to register if you haven't come across that link in the chat box. We will be happy to have you as you register. The link is still open for everyone in the room. So once again, I want to welcome to whoever is joining us now. Please use the chat box to introduce yourself to us. Let us know your name, the organization you're working for, and the country you're joining us from. And I just remembered I did not say where I'm coming from. So I am currently based in Rwanda. Yes. So moving on into our another session. Tonight, we have a theme called Building and Leading Value-Based Teams. So the structure for tonight, we are going to begin with a presentation from our guest speaker, Tom, who will set the stage with his perspective and experience. And after that, we will transition into a moderated conversation with Dr. Nick Funda, where we expand on the practical lessons and the leadership insights from his work experience as well. And finally, we will open the floor for a Q&A session. And please feel free as well to drop your question in the chat box as we go along with the presentation. At the end, I and the team will coordinate and we will welcome you to ask your questions in the Q&A sessions. So before I officially introduce our speaker, let me share something personal about how I know both our speakers that we have in the room tonight. The first time I met Tom, I was during the LCA training, leadership series training that happened last year in 2024. And at first, when I saw Tom, I saw a young man full of energy, welcome. And honestly, I never imagined that he has already some rooted conversation space, he's familiar with nature and his love for nature. But as he shared some of his stories and work experience, I was amazed by the way his life and conservation embedded so seamlessly. From his passion, his curiosity, and his commitment to nature were truly inspiring, and I'm sure you're going to hear more about it tonight. And then when I met Dr. Nick Funda the first time, I have to admit that I was a little intimidated. He is a giant man, and indeed he is, but very gentle as well. So I thought, he must be strict and serious, which he is, yes, but he is also gentle. So he embodies discipline, and those are some of high standards that I saw from him. But through his talks, his personal experience he shared with us, the team, the advice, and we're really the advice along the leadership in a workspace. I've learned something very valuable, that you can be a strong and a firm leader, but at the same time, you are approachable and warm and very welcoming to your team and your colleagues. And that balance makes him such a remarkable leader from what I learned from him. So without further ado, let us begin our session with our first speaker, Tom. And Tom is manages the activities of the conservation, mitigation, and biodiversity offset project at the Wildlife Conservation Society in Uganda. I'm very delighted to welcome Tom to take us through his presentation. So, Tom, the floor is yours.
Right. My name is Tom Geme. I come from Uganda. I'm a conservationist. I do so many other things in addition to that, but I'm quite keen on aspects that speak to conservation. I started out in the private sector, so working with a forestry company, and at that time it was the biggest forestry company in Africa, outside South Africa. A few years later, I had to join the government of Uganda, working with what they call the National Environment Management Authority. I worked with them for a few years, then I moved on to academia. And then right now I'm back to what we call the stronghold of conservation, like typical conservation, some with an with a conservation organization, the Wildlife Conservation Society. It's headquartered in New York, but then has operations all over the world, and I'm attached to what they call the Uganda Country Program. Yeah, so what I'm going to be sharing is going to be a collection of experiences, and I think for me this session is more of a session in which I'm going to be sharing experiences as well as learning from the team. I mean, being put on the same call with Dr. Nick Funda for me is already a challenge, but I'll try to see how I can be able to go about it because, having met him, there were lots of things that I really learned, and I think some of those things I'm already practicing. But anyway, like I said, I'm going to be sharing a presentation, and I'm going to run through this very fast. It's a very short presentation, and I'm hoping I shouldn't take very long so I can give people more time so they can ask questions in case there are any. Yeah, so like Diane mentioned, Diane, you've been very generous with your introduction. I thank you very much, as well as Robert, and to the leadership and for conservation in Africa. Thanks very much for the opportunity. It's not so many times that I get to speak to people that are like-minded. Sometimes I'm arguing with policymakers. Other times I'm doing some different things in the field. So now that I have the opportunity to speak to people who are like-minded, I hope I can be able to share these experiences and you can be able to pick a leaf or two. We shall be talking about, my presentation anyway, talks about teamwork and management for emerging leaders. So my focus is really going to be on how to build a collaborative and high-impact teams. There is a very interesting quote here where someone called Orain Woodward mentions that a leader must inspire or his team will expire. So for me, when I was reading that book, then I came across that quote. It does speak to me. It sort of mentions that you as a leader, you have a role to be what you want your team really to deliver. If you don't really take a lead and you sit back because you feel you've employed maybe the best teams, you're working with the best people, and then you let everybody run away with whatever they're supposed to do, I feel you're going to end up not achieving the results. And these are things I'm going to be sharing today. So my presentation is going to be segmented into those six, is it six? Or yeah, I think six sections. The first one is I'm going to be speaking about why teamwork matters. And here I'm going to be touching on aspects where I think it's very important for us to be not working alone. It's very okay to work alone, but sometimes it's very helpful if we work as teams. And then I'll also be talking about roles of emerging leaders. And here I'm going to be reflecting more about what I've really seen coming through as a leader for, I think now it's going to be close to 9 years in which I've been holding typical positions that have a lot of leadership, and I hope it's going to be very helpful for everybody. Then here I'll also be speaking about the core teamwork skills. What exactly is expected for you as a leader so you can be able to achieve those different results you expect your team to give you at the end of the day. Then things that I've used, what I'm calling here the management essentials, things that have always come through and have always enabled me be able to deliver on the different targets that have always been set by my bosses or my managers. Then I also be able to speak to common challenges and solutions that I've sometimes learned from people that have been told, and things that I've taken up eventually and I thought it would work. Then I would also be wrapping up to give you what I think would be the next steps. Yeah, so talking about why teamwork matters. For me, when I started working, I was given a role as an inventory officer. Those of us that are in conservation, we know we do a lot of inventories. We go out to the different places we work in. It could be national parks, it could be forests, and we do a lot of work. What happens in that case, sometimes we realize the people we are working with are not the most educated. So that was a challenge for me. So you come here, you have all these things you've learned in school, and then you're asking yourself, how do I translate some of those things? And sometimes you'd want to sort of enforce some of the things you've learned from school, and you think these guys are going to be able to abide by them because they are a supervisor or something, but sometimes it doesn't work that way. Given that sometimes the experiences these guys have, for example, the team I had massive experiences, at least in forestry work or inventory work. They're able to collect data, they're able to use the GPS units, able to, speak to the communities better, they're able to interact with the visitors better, and those are things I didn't have experiences with. So for me, what I thought was very important to always make sure I don't simply impose my ideas on them, but learn to work with them. I thought was very important in, first of all, trying to innovate. I needed to understand from this team what exactly was working well in their teams and what they thought I could bring on board. Then as a leader, now I had to come in with innovative skills. For example, if a team was delivering about, you were able to enumerate 2 acres per day, how could I be able to deliver more results, say 3 acres? And that required that I needed to listen to them to get to know what the experiences were, what the challenges were, and then we can be able to do better. The other thing is teamwork also builds resilience. Now for me as a young person coming from university and being thrown to work in a very remote area in a forest, the thing is you needed to get a team around you so you can be able to understand how these guys have been able to do this work for a very long time. Sometimes we get into these, these tasks we do or the work we get, and we feel we're going to be able to flourish. But then we find the situations are very different. So how can you be able to build resilience? You're going to be able to maybe piggyback on the experiences these guys have, and then you can be able to do things the right way and then deliver results. So I think generally teamwork does bring forth results. Sometimes when we do a lot of work alone, we're able to produce a lot of work. But then it may not be as good quality, or it may not be as good as what it would have been if you had worked with everybody. Then the other thing is, I already spoke to this, diversity of perspectives. I think it's very important to acknowledge that we don't know it all. I think for me, what I've learned through the years, including working with people that are semi-literate sometimes, you learn that people are on those jobs or have been able to get those roles for a reason. Maybe because they're more energetic, maybe because they have better experiences, maybe they know the language better, and that has enabled us to be able to appreciate them. So teamwork allows for the diversity of these perspectives, and that allows me as a team leader to be able to make the best decisions, because I'm going to be able to listen to so many people. Sometimes you might think your way is the right one, but then it ends up being totally wrong or unacceptable. Then the last thing, it is also very important because it builds trust and collaboration, and it reduces burnout. Right now, we all talk about stress and how we can be able to manage stress. So it's very important as leaders to understand that it's sometimes important to apportion roles to different stakeholders or different team members so they can be able to play what they're supposed to play as roles. Otherwise, if we don't, you're going to have some people being overloaded, others don't exactly have what to do, and then some people are going to be stressed out, and sometimes they might even leave the job market. So I decided to add a quotation here, which I thought is very interesting. We all know it. It's an African proverb which says that if you want to go fast, it's very important to go alone. But if you want to go far, sometimes it's very important to work together. And I think this speaks to exactly why teamwork is very important. Then what are the roles of emerging leaders? I think I've discovered over time that as a leader, sometimes because you don't have experience, you're going to be learning. But as you learn, I think this is something Diane mentioned, you have to be firm sometimes. You have to set a tone for collaboration. You're going to always find those team members others and they don't want to collaborate. So you as a team leader, you need to be very emphatic. You need to be very clear that, you know what, I need you guys to collaborate. I need you guys to be able to work together. It's very important for emerging leaders to recognize that. Then I also think it's very important we as leaders to build a mode of accountability. And here we're talking about having emotional intelligence as well. So in as much as we want people to deliver, it's very important that we understand that situations may not be the same always. Sometimes someone could have lost someone. I encountered so many of these scenarios. Someone doesn't come, and because you needed to deliver, let's say 20 plots in a day, the team was able to deliver maybe 10 instead of 20. Then you're very hard on the team. You don't exactly understand why they were not able to deliver. In as much as we're doing that, it's also very important to be, sympathetic and understand what exactly people are going through, and then we can be able to deliver. But in as much as we can give them that leeway, it's also important to hold them accountable. That you guys, yesterday you came because of this situation, you're not able to deliver what was expected of you. So what are you going to be able to do next? What is the plan on making sure that we deliver? Because we promise the bosses, for example, we should be able to deliver, let's say 100 plots. So it's very important to make sure the team is very accountable. And that starts with you as a leader. Then the last thing, it's very important as emerging leaders to appreciate that there are always gaps between strategy and execution. We always come with these wonderful work plans that, my team is going to be able to produce 20 plots for these 5 days of the week. Then so it so happens it rains a lot. That happened when we used to do some of the inventories. It rains a lot for 2 days and you're not able to do that. So you need to be able to think through the strategies and think of a way in which you can be able to compensate maybe, or try to explain. Sometimes you may not be able to even compensate. So you need to be able to hold up your position and go speak to the bosses, tell them why you're unable to deliver, and find a way of doing this better maybe next time. Maybe if it needs them to be given more equipment, then you can look into that. Over time, I have also noticed that it's very important to think of certain skills that you're going to always emulate, or things that you're going to sort of hold as dear. So for me, what I think are the critical skills when working with teams is being able to listen. And we're talking about active listening. So when someone is listening, I think right now we have so many gadgets with us. So when someone is speaking to you, you're basically on your laptop typing away, or you're on your phone sending or making a call. Sometimes it's not respectful. So because you need to allow people to understand that you're actually listening to them, you're also going to have to listen actively. And I think it's a very core skill. And over time, I've had to struggle sometimes because I feel my deadlines are maybe not being met because people are talking. So you end up doing different things. But I've learned over time that it's very important to listen and listen actively. What is also critical is listening. Is communication. When you make a communication to the team, it should be very clear what is expected of them and who is doing what role. When are they going to be able to deliver? And what is expected of them in terms of remuneration, for example. Sometimes they are working for money. So if you're not able to come through and communicate clearly that for this task, we have this amount of money, it's going to create a lot of commotion and a lot of mistrust for you as a leader. And that's going to be very, very dangerous, especially as you execute the roles you do have. Then the other thing I thought that is very important in terms of working with teams is the ability to resolve conflicts timely and also be able to have what we call a feedback culture. Talking about conflict resolution, we need to appreciate as leaders, we need to appreciate as young leaders that conflicts are bound to occur. Why? Because we come from different walks of lives, we have different experiences, we have different, understandings. So it's very important that we have that diversity in views. But then how you as a leader approaches that is also very critical. So it's very important going forward as leaders that we try to resolve conflicts. Personally, I would always have conflicts maybe with bosses, and then the boss expects some different results, the team expects different results, then the team is unable to deliver, then the team is giving so many excuses. How you're able to resolve that is very important. And it's also very important to also be able to give feedback to whoever is concerned. For example, if it's affecting the team that you are supervising, and you have to give feedback to the top managers, it's very important that you give them feedback in a way that is very clear, and also let them know that these people we are having support us in our work are as crucial as anybody else, because they're basically the bottom line that is sort of supporting all the other ecosystems that we are sort of piggybacking on. Then the other thing is also important to build, what we call team goals. We need to always think of teams as, so many cogs, and how you bring those together is by having a goal. What exactly is expected of us as a team? You need to be able to communicate that clearly so everybody knows that we as the inventory team, for example, is expected to do X, Y, Z. And how are we going to be able to do this? And you also spell that out. That's very important, because if the goal is known by everybody, it's going to be very easy for you to maybe hold them accountable, to also be able to deliver on results. And also importantly, I think it's also important to have mutual respect. I've spoken about this earlier when I mentioned that we come from different backgrounds. So sometimes we are going to put up things in a way that is a bit different to others, but it's very important as teams also be able to find what we call a bridge, how we can be able to compromise, understand everybody, and make sure that everybody is able to be able to deliver. And that's very important through mutual respect. When I'm a leader, I should be able to communicate to you, but when I'm being communicated to as well by the people I supervise, I should also be able to respectfully listen to them and also take their ideas in consideration. Now, what have I used over time to make sure I'm able to deliver on what tasks have been given? I think I've mentioned this earlier, that I've been able to define roles and responsibilities clearly, because that way, if you don't do that, you're going to run into conflict. For example, if you have a consultant that you brought on board, and then the consultant is expected to do much more, and then they're not delivering as much because you're not able to tell them exactly what their roles are. Even when you give them the terms of reference, sometimes it becomes very difficult. So it's very important to go through those over and over again. How we've been able to do that in the different workspaces I've been in, we usually have what we call team talks, or what sometimes we call toolbox talks. So after every task, we would want to come back and reflect on what went well, what didn't go well, how could people be supported, maybe they need some more capacity, maybe they need some more tools. It's very important that we make sure that we define everybody's role and what is expected for everybody in terms of deliveries. Then I think it's also very important that we align our team goals. I earlier talked about having a team goal, but that team goal should not be, self-serving. The team should be able to serve the big organization, because we are there as supervisors, maybe as team leaders, to serve the bigger goal. In this case, it could be the organization. So it's very important that whatever goals that we do, come up with teams that we've agreed upon, they should be able to align with organizational goals, or else you're going to be very happy with the people you're supervising, and they're going to be very happy with you, but your bosses won't be happy with you. What happens in that case? Maybe you might be fired, maybe you might be suspended. Sometimes they might take away some bonuses from you. So it's very important that these goals are very clear and are well aligned to the organizational vision. Then also, I've also noticed that there are so many tools that are available to us. How could we be able to use them to deliver? So I've used tools such as the OKRs. We have those agile boards, and as young people, we know there's so many tools available right now, because we call ourselves the E-age. We are more into technology. We know about so many tools. We know about the artificial intelligence and all these wonderful tools. Could we be able to use those tools to enable us to deliver better? And I think this is very critical. What have I found generally as challenges? I think sometimes building transparency is quite difficult, because people, when they look at you, I'm talking about myself as a mid-level leader, because I've not been a lead of an organization and I speak usually for the organization. So there is a bit of transparency. You need to be able to come through and tell people that, this is what has been decided by the bigger bosses, and these are people that supervise me. And then I have to explain this transparently to the team. And also, you shouldn't be shifting goalposts at every point that I find. So sometimes you'd be communicating that, team, we've delivered 20, then next time you're asking them for 30, then they're going to ask you what exactly is expected of us. So it's very important that we have that consistency, because I've found that as a challenge. Usually when teams are delivering better, you'd want to push them to give even better, and that becomes a challenge. And this is something I've faced over time, because I felt by delivering more, my bosses would be happy, but then it ended up having the team disgruntled. And when the team is disgruntled, the results are going to, take a downward spiral, and that's very important. So you're consistent, and when there are needs for changes, you need to come out and communicate clearly, and also be consistent in whatever you're communicating. Then I think I've also spoken about this. There is need to set norms, and this is a challenge I've always found. So you'd, as young leaders, we are fond of wanting to make friends, because we can't love everybody the same. So at the end of the day, these friends might start being able to, might start telling you things that are not exactly developmental for the team. So because everybody believes they need to communicate to X to communicate to you, you don't have, a good feedback mechanism for the team. And this has always challenged me, because there are people who are going to be more receptive to what you say, and others who are going to always say no. So because you're not able to communicate clearly, I think for me that has always been challenging. And I've overcome that by making sure that these norms are sort of clarified. I think I mixed up the slide. I'm going to be able to speak to it, but I don't have slides there in terms of solutions. So what is very important is that you should be able to have an open team. The team should be able to come to you whenever they have challenges. If at least they don't have someone they can talk to, you should always find a way of maybe coming up with innovative ideas. Maybe you can have what we call a suggestion box that people can be able to give you feedback on, and then you can be able to integrate whatever they're saying in what you're saying. And it's very important that whatever is discussed in privacy, sometimes because we want to make sure people know that we know everything, we come out and speak about it and then end up embarrassing people. So I've found challenges in that, especially when I was starting. Right now, I think things are a bit clearer and a bit better, but I think that was a challenge. Then the other challenge I also noted is that because I wasn't sure of what I'm expected of as a leader, I was never able to give my expectations clearly. So like I mentioned earlier, I could be able to set a goal because I don't know how these guys are going to be able to deliver. I would set a goal of 10 plots, for example. These guys go ahead and give me 12. But because I want to really find out how much they can do, I end up asking them for more. Because of that lack of clarity on the expectations that you need, you end up, maybe stressing out the team, and sometimes some people had to leave, and that was a challenge because we ended up delivering much less than was expected of us. Then lastly, I think it's very important to have inclusive decision making. I've mentioned earlier that it's very important for you to recognize that you don't know it all, and this is something I'm going to be speaking to later. But then generally, as final takeaways, I spoke to the solutions as well as challenges in the discussions, so I won't go back to that. But then as takeaways for me, I think great teams are built and not born. There is no team that you're going to find perfect. Right now, for example, those of us that support Manchester United, we know the team has been being built for some time, but then for some reason they don't come together. But I know at some point they will come together. So as leaders, we need to find that gel that can be able to bring these teams together, and it's very important that we look at that. Then I think as a takeaway as well, I think we as emerging leaders, we need to balance empathy with execution. I earlier talked about the need to execute, but then sometimes we push so much for results and forget to understand that people have emotions, and because they have emotions, sometimes they may not like what we do. Then lastly, it's very important to invest in relationships. They are our currency. It's very important that your team trusts you. It's very important that the team knows that you have their back. It's very important that the team knows that you're going to be able to really walk the journey with them. So lastly, I have this wonderful quote again, and This is something I've already spoken to. Generally, the quote is basically by Ken Blanchard, and it is that none of us is as smart as all of us. So, in as much as you might be very smart, it's very important to recognize that if you actually got another smart person, you'd be much smarter, the two of you, than just if it was just one person. Thanks very much for listening to me. I'll be looking forward to listening to their questions in case there are any or comments, really. Thanks very much again.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much, Tom, for really giving us a really good presentation, very insightful and very key notes you gave us, beautiful quotes to keep in mind. And let me highlight some of them that I really love, that I think all of them came back to teamwork. The first proverb that you shared with us, that if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, you go together. And that comes back to teamwork. And as a leader, you can't do anything without a team. And I appreciate you for noting that, for mentioning that. And also you talked about that management is about enabling others to succeed. Yes, very sure. A leader cannot succeed alone. He will need a team, and enabling the team to to succeed, then you're a true leader. And lastly, a beautiful quote that you gave us from Ken, that none of us is as smart as all of us. I think those are words of wisdom. Please join me to give a round of applause to Tom for a very good presentation and very insightful. Now let's move into another moderator conversation segment. And I'm honored to have Dr. Nick Funda with us in the room. And Dr. Funda currently serves as the General Manager for Area Integrity Management at South African National Parks. And Dr. Funda, before we go into the conversation and questions, may I invite you to share some light and reflection on the presentation that Tom just gave us? You're welcome.
Thank you. I think, Tom, that was a brilliant presentation, and teamwork is key. And Tom mentioned how important is teamwork, that individuals can really strive to build stronger teams. And his quotation as well, that if you want to run fast, maybe do it yourself individually, but if you want to really cover a long distance, take your team with. And as you go up the organization, you really have to work with the teams, and you delegate functions. We're going to talk about this leadership in terms of how do you delegate, and at what level do you delegate, and all of that. And I think the students, once they get into the employment, they will understand that there are different levels that you give some responsibility, particular responsibilities. At a lower level, you need manuals and guidance. But as you move up the ladder, you start having to use your discretion and your experience and your values, as Tom mentioned. And I think one of the things that really Tom emphasized is this issue of conflict, that part of responsibility as a leader is your ability to manage conflicts, because people are coming from different background, and they have different expectations, and they have different values, and even lastly, they are guided by different principles. Therefore, it's important that to understand as a leader that your ability to integrate all those different backgrounds for the success of the organization, and also for developing of individuals within the organizations, because the aim at the end of the day is to empower the individuals to work as a team. Tom, I think your presentation was really spot on in terms of teamwork.
Thank you, Dr. Nick, for a good reflection. And now, diving into our conversation questions or panel. Before we dive into the theme of values-based leadership, could you please take us through the journey in the beginning? What first inspired you to enter into conservation and set you on the path that led you to where you are today?
I must first be honest that conservation was not even my priority and was not even on my radar in terms of career. But I developed it over time while I was within the different organizations in conservation. It came as when I finished matric, I wanted to be a vet or engineer, and unfortunately, I didn't have money to study those. But the government at the time in the homelands were interested to develop a Department of Nature Conservation, and they offered bursaries for us to go and study nature conservation. That's where it started. And I always also linked that theoretical classroom type of with my background. I grew up in rural areas of South Africa, and I grew up as a head boy. And I found that as the poorer you are, the more you are closer to nature. And also the richer you are, the more you have access to nature. Therefore, in between, sometimes we just become confused. We think that being closer to nature is primitive. But as you accumulate wealth, you start realizing that maybe the urban environment is not that the best, and there are better places. Hence, you are seeing richer people spending more time, holidays into protected areas, into nature, because they want to go back to some of the people, they say they go back to detoxic because, I mean, the air you breathe in bigger cities is different from the air you breathe in the wilderness. And those are the experiences that I've learned over time in conservation.
And now, talking about personal journey and values, I know you have, in one or the other, you have faced through tough challenges of leading rangers against sophisticated criminals in anti-poaching operations, and all while carrying a deep personal attachment to the animal you protect. How has the journey shaped the values that guide your leadership today?
Thank you for that. The good question is, when you finish, when you're new in an organization, you have an opportunity to practice what you have learned in school or universities, because you are closer to the animals and wildlife in general. Wildlife include your plants and wild areas, wild landscapes. But as you move up the ladder, you start dealing with people. The most difficult animal to manage in this world for me, it's human beings. And the experience that I've got from working with different people and with different intentions. I mean, our clients are poachers that are coming into the park, and how do we deal with those clients? You have to prepare yourself. It's like a professor at a university. If they are supervising you for your PhD, they want to be ahead of you. Even the criminals, they want to be ahead of the rangers, and the rangers, they want to be ahead of the criminals. Therefore, there's this catch-up game that we have to play. And because they are monitoring you and you are monitoring them. And therefore, it's important that you understand their behaviors, and also to have, as Tom mentioned, you're going to need that strong team and that trust each other, and the team that can really work not necessarily from 8 to 4 o'clock, because the criminals, they don't work like that. And if you are predictable, they will really capitalize on your routine work. Therefore, you need to create an environment that is unpredictable, because the criminals out there are unpredictable. And therefore, the trust among your team members, and also the ability to learn. And when you come out of the university, you don't know everything, and you will have an opportunity to work with people that have been in the field for so many years. They might not have the theoretical part, but they have experience, and you can learn a lot. Some of the things are not in the textbooks that we read, but you learn by doing in the field, and those are the things that I've learned over time with dealing with criminals that we're facing, and also the dealing with the animals that we are protecting. And I think it's important that to understand, why are you protecting these animals? We're not protecting nature for the sake of nature. We're protecting these animals for ourselves, and even for history, for the past, and also for the future. Because I listened to one of these clever people. They said, we borrow this world from our future generations, and we must really try to keep it as pristine as possible. Those are the guiding principles that have helped me over time, is to base your decision on multiple values that are out there. And we're dealing with individuals, and that have their own values, and you have, as a person, you have your own values. And part when we're discussing this leadership, we said at a family level there are values as well. That we've got values that you were taught by your parents in terms of respect and all of that. And when you come into organizations, you get organizational values. And again, you have stakeholders that you're going to work with in organizations. I mean, communities, tourists, and politicians and policymakers within the organization. You have different departments, and they have different values that they are attaching to the resources you are trying to protect. I mean, someone from tourism, they see money when they see animals. You're working together, but they have different values of those animals. A conservationist will have a different value from the tourist, because they want to see the interactions between abiotics and biotics. That sounds like an ecology 101. But those are the things that one need to understand, that people are coming from different backgrounds. They have put different meanings to these wild places that we manage.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Funda, the audience will agree with me. You emphasized much on the values, that it starts from individual values and character that you build for you to be able to be a good conservationist who fights for nature rather than personal interest. And talking from your experience as someone who has been leading on the front line, I know conservation does not happen in an isolation space. It requires that you get to collaborate across, from rangers, policymakers, and as well as the community around those parks that we are trying to conserve, and those conservation spaces that we are trying to protect. From your experience, what strategies do you think, or from your experience, have worked to align such a diverse groups around common values?
There are a number of things that you need to do in dealing with multiple stakeholders. And one is it's a recognition of those values, because people are coming into your environment with different expectations. The communities that are bordering a national park, they have different expectations, and they see the park different. Maybe they value the park as a place where you can get protein for free, where you don't have to go and buy protein, and therefore they're improving their diet and they're improving their health, and they read that game meat is much healthier. But you need to bring in the issue of sustainability and looking at human populations and versus the wildlife population and saying, is it sustainable that we can harvest these animals at the rate that we are harvesting? Those are the values you need to understand. And sometimes they see the park as a place where you are breeding the predators that are going to kill their livestock. And then you need to understand where they're coming from. And therefore, sometimes they see you as an enemy and who is against their interests and their will. And therefore, an ability to integrate all those values into management of protected area is important. And also recognizing that there are people inside the organization that have different views and different goals that they want to achieve. I think what is important, the values might not be necessarily be common, but compatibility is more important, whether those values are compatible. Because if those values are not compatible, there is no future going forward. And therefore, it is important that the values must be able to accommodate other values and in order to manage these protected areas in a sustainable manner. And therefore, I will really think that collaboration is important. I think, again, I'm going to refer to Tom. We don't only collaborate with people that are within our countries. You have donors that are coming into from different spheres, and that might have a stake in your protected area or in your forest. And therefore, you need to recognize what are their values, what they are trying to achieve, and how are you going to accommodate that going forward, because we tend to not have enough resources to manage these protected areas. But at the same time, it does not mean you should be a yes pass kind of. Therefore, you must be able to defend what you are employed to do. And therefore, in terms of decision making, a consultative decision making mechanism is recommended. But at the end of the day, the buck stops with you as a leader. And sometimes you have to make decisions that are not going to be palatable. Therefore, part of being a leader, you are not necessarily be a popular person. And therefore, the younger leaders, they need to understand that. I mean, if you're a member of the SRC, they accuse you of being a corrupt leader and you are stealing money of the fees and all of that. But at the same time, you know that you're not doing that, and your integrity should be your best investment, because you are your own brand. There's only one Nicholus Funda. If I mess up with my brand, to recover from that, I mean, if I'm caught up poaching, as some of our rangers have been caught, to recover from that damage, it will take forever, and sometimes you will never recover. We're a very small population in conservation. We know each other from Cape to Cairo. And I have friends now in Uganda, and the young rangers are lucky because they are exposed to the rest of the continent. In the past, we were not exposed to the rest of the continent. We were limited into South Africa. Even in South Africa, we were limited into the homelands. And some people are even stuck into provinces and all of that. And I think we live in a very exciting times, and where sharing the information is critical if we want to succeed in the long term.
Thank you, Dr. Funda, again. And I think you really emphasized on the value of leading with integrity. And my question next is related to leading with integrity, where today we are leading in a world where corruption and pressure from powerful leaders or powerful interests can threaten progress. And from your perspective, if we could get your advice, how can leaders ensure their teams remain committed to integrity and shared values?
As mentioned earlier, that your integrity should not be questioned as a leader. Because, I mean, if you if you are doing things behind, you're doing opposite things behind your principals' backs, and you are not you are not an ethical leader in a particular area, then you will be under severe pressure. You should, as a leader, more especially in conservation, you should be a leader that is not corruptible. You should be a leader that is ethical. There are many pressures. You know, people, they always say, well, there are so many temptations to get off the path, and you start doing the bad things. And there's so really we live in those temptations. I mean, people will know that you owe a vehicle, you owe a house, your kids are struggling in school, you can't pay fees, and the criminals, they want to hit you on your vulnerabilities. And they're going to come back and come to you and said, we can settle your house, we can settle your car. Boy, you will work for them if you're going to do that. You do to one person and you will work for them forever, because you will be known as a corrupt person that will always be, the word is going to spread that you are corrupt, and you will never get out of that. The most important thing in terms of measure of interventions, how do you share your values? It's recognizing that people are subjected to these temptations, and therefore you need to make a team that is that is not corruptible. How do you do that? And there are many ways of doing that. You can send them into course on ethics, but at the same time, you should live by example. You should lead by example. You should they should learn from you that corruption doesn't pay. And I mean, take them into prison and they interview prisoners and see how bad it is to waste your time in prison and you're losing your income. I mean, so there are some people that have lost income for minor or petty things. I mean, traffic cops in this country or traffic officers in this country, they are corrupted by 20 Rand or 50 Rand. I don't know how much that is in dollars. And people lose jobs because of a 20 Rand or $2 or $1, and you lose the whole salary, which is a good salary, and maybe you are still young, and then you will be poor forever because of corruption. And again, what we also have in our organization is a wellness of rangers. You need to look after them in terms of wellness, and how do they manage their monies, how do they manage their resources, and family-wise, how do they live as families, and is there any abuse of alcohol? You need to monitor everything that your rangers are exposed to. And last but not least is recognizing that they come from families, and open that your wellness program to accommodate their families. Because if you have an open door policy for families to report if a partner who happen to be your law enforcement officer has got some problems at home, and the spouse might be able to explain to you that some of your rangers have got problems you need to address. And quick intervention is the most important thing, and also prevention is better than cure, because if the cancer is in the system, it's going to be difficult to take it out. By cancer, I mean the corruption. If it has infiltrated into your teams, to get it out is going to take time and is going to cost you money.
Mm. Yes, thank you. Thank you again, Dr. Funda. And in the room, we are having many young conservationists in the room. And today, many young graduates entering into the space of conservation do not immediately have formal authority. And that's most of the times puts a lot of pressure on young people. But at the end of the day, they have a way they can influence, they have opportunity to influence in one way or the other. What do you think is, what are some of the practical ways you can lead with values even from where you are?
Well, your values are things that guide you in decision making, in doing almost everything. They guide your actions, they guide your behavior, and they also influence some stakeholders. Therefore, it's important that as a young leader, you come up front and define who you are and what direction are you going to take. If you think it's going to be difficult to resist temptations, maybe you've taken a wrong career. We look after high value species like rhinos, abalone, pangolins, and those species are on demand. People want to have access into those species. Therefore, if your values are not up to standard, therefore I think that maybe you should go and do other things rather than focusing on the conservation. And for me, what really helped me is having values and having guiding principles in all what I'm doing in my career. And I'm really proud of what I'm not rich in terms of material stuff, but boy, I'm really happy to where I am, and because I know that I've worked hard to be where I am. The message to the youngsters is that hard work pays. And if you are committed to work very hard, I promise you the sky is the limit.
Yes, youngsters in the room, I think you heard about it. He mentioned that hard work really pays. I think it's a matter of being patient with time. Yes, and now, Dr. Funda, if you could boil down your journey in ant poaching and conservation leadership into one value that you would love to pass to the next generation, what would it be and why?
Integrity will be one of the important values, but it's not the only value, because what I like about integrity, it's broad enough to accommodate multiple values that are recommended. For example, trust is part of having an integrity, and honesty is part of being. I mean, if you are dishonest, you don't have an integrity. As I've said earlier, that we have only one brand. There's only one Tom, Geme, and if that Tom is messed up, that brand is gone, and it will not recover very easy. And therefore, I would really think that the most important value is really integrity, and recognizing that you work with multiple values as well, and recognize those values.
Thank you, Dr. Funda. So my final question is, if looking ahead, what kind of leadership do you believe Africa's conservation sector mostly urgently needs, and how do values shape the path toward that future?
An ability to integrate. There are multiple interests in conservation in these days. It's not only looking after the wildlife, and in South Africa we talk about bokkies and plants. Bokkies means a goat, and it's not all about that. There are multiple values that you need to integrate into conservation in these days. Therefore, an ability to accommodate and integrate them in decision making, you will come up with better decisions if your values are much broad enough, and you recognize other people and other values. And I think you will be able to be the best manager and the best leader if you can engage multiple stakeholders, including your staff members. What is important is productivity, because at the end of the day, I work in forestry, Tom, as well, and productivity is important in forestry. You must be able to harvest volume so that you can sell and get money into the organization. But what is important is the long-term success of your organization. And I think if you integrate all of that and build a culture that is based on trust, integrity, and I think that if you're gonna do those things, you will have better behaviors for your team, and the team that will really trust you and respect you. But building trust is the most difficult thing to do, because it's based on multiple facets, and building that trust will be my recommendation, that build yourself to be trusted, and also develop your subordinates to be trusted, and teach them about values and principles that can guide them in decision making. I mean, we are old now, we are on our way out of conservation. It's important that we plant some seeds and leave the seeds to grow and take over from us. And therefore, we need people with integrity.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Funda. I think for giving us a very good, insightful talk, and words of wisdom from different corners, values, and also getting to share your personal story and how you find yourself into conservation. I know you wanted to do engineering, but I think, allow me to call you, you are the engineer in conservation. So now we are closing now. We are moving into another session for Q&A session, where the audience is allowed to ask some questions. And I see there's no one who has dropped any question in the chat box, but feel free to raise your hand to ask any question either to Dr. Funda or Tom. We still have him in the room. And I wanted to welcome Tom to come on the screen so I could ask him to share with us how he also found himself into the journey of conservation, to the space of conservation. What were your beginnings, personal beginnings in transitioning to the space of conservation? Tom, if you're still with us, please share with us as we wait for questions from the audience.
Right, thank you very much. That's an interesting question. And Dr. Funda, I'm not stealing your answer here, but looks like we all never wanted to be in conservation. That's the truth, honestly, at least for me. So growing up, I grew up with a dad who was a medical doctor, and for a long time I was always yearning. I'd always wanted to be a medical doctor. But then towards university, I discovered, unfortunately, that I couldn't actually stand human blood. So if someone got an accident or something, I would actually be very hesitant to be able to approach him. So for that reason, because I had done sciences and I was quite good at these things, I was very good at dissecting the rats and cockroaches and all those wonderful things that biologists love to dissect. I was very good. But then I just couldn't stand human blood. So there was a question on what exactly could I do in my science? And this is when someone suggested that I would actually go and study forestry. And because I'd applied to do medical sciences, I couldn't generally just shift. So I had to go through what they call private sponsorship. My parents had to pay for my university, and that's how I went to Makerere University, which is here in Uganda. And then yeah, I came out with a very good degree. Even when I didn't love the course, I managed to get a very good degree, and that's why it was very easy for me to get a very good job. So a very good job even before I graduated, and that's how I got to be a conservationist. And I must say, I'm not regretting. It's been one of the most rewarding experiences. I've gone to places I didn't think I would actually go if I was a medical doctor. Yeah, that's the journey.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. It's so amazing to hear that you wanted to be a doctor. Now you are a doctor in conservation, and really thank you. Now I want to ask if If I don't have any question from the audience, please feel free to raise your hand. Otherwise, I'm gonna take a chance to ask another questions. Yes, Robert, go ahead. You can ask your question.
Yes, thank you, Diane. Thank you, Dr. Funda and Tom, for a great presentation and very insightful talk. I learned a lot when Dr. Funda was talking about being the president of Student Representative Council and having to deal with all the comments, all the feedback from the student body. It brought me back to the memories of my time in college, where I had to deal with the administration, the student body, and I had to balance whether I should favor the the side of the student or the side of administration, and it was very, very challenging. But my question is different from that. I want to ask about what we leave the university with. Usually, we end college with theoretical knowledge, and we find it very hard to navigate the workforce. We get jobs, but then because we didn't have the practical experience in the area, we find it very hard to familiarize ourselves. So my question is, I know most of the audience are the students as of now. What would be your advice, either Tom or Dr. Funda? What would be your advice? What should the students look out for them to not find it very hard when they get out of the college? Whether they should find internships while they're still students, or should they do something very different as they are still navigating academic but preparing themselves when they get out.
I think, Tom, you can start before I can intimidate you.
Right, thank you very much. I think for me, one of the things I've seen is that there are so many internships, there are so many organizations that are out there, and they're willing to give young people an opportunity. Usually, the internships don't come with facilitation or money. So if you're out there and you're interested in this kind of work, I think it's very important to be actively searching for organizations in the space you want. It could be space that is really field related, for example, working with South African national parks, or you would want to work for policy related organizations such as IUCN or the WWF or WCS, which is also field based. You might want to start looking out for those organizations, and you get a chance to sort of practice what you learned in school. And I think it's very easy for them, after they've seen what you do and how you're able to handle situations, for you to get into this world of proper employment. That would be my quickest take.
Thank you, Robert. I think it was a brilliant question. And there are a couple of things that comes into my mind. Is that firstly, some of us, conservation was not the first choice. And maybe we're told that in Building 21 at TUT, there was still space in nature conservation, therefore you can go and enroll there. And therefore the internalizing conservation is always a challenge. And therefore I think that the culture of voluntarism, it's something that we are not seeing it more especially in the Black cultures in South Africa, that we always want to work for money. We wanted to get paid. And therefore, I would recommend that we change that culture and we start doing voluntary work. I mean, if you are studying at TUT, there are so many places in Pretoria that you can do some voluntary work. And you have IUCN in Pretoria, offices in Pretoria. You have Jeff offices in Pretoria. I'm talking about international bodies that are conservation orientated. You have zoos and you have botanical gardens. you've got national parks, you've got provinces, you've got local governments with protected areas. Those are the places that one can do voluntary work. I mean, if you can be committed on weekends that you are even doing hikes, you join a hiking club. You don't have to pay to be in the hiking club, because what you are trying to do, you are trying to build a network outside the academic environment. You want to be known outside there because that's where you're going to work. And therefore, I would recommend that culture of voluntarism to really people start experimenting and do that. And also, when you get to conservation itself, and it's not a very friendly environment, and there's a lot of discipline, command and control. Where you're going to be instructed of what to do, and they are not. We're not usually interested on your complaints and all of that. There's work to be done, and your ability to adapt to such an environment sometimes it will really help you, because sometimes you deal with life and death situation where either you're going to be killed or your partner is going to be killed, and therefore you need to take instruction. If we are told what to do and to save your life, to save other people's lives, it's important that you listen and take instructions. You can argue later. I mean, we are also human beings. We like to argue. Maybe while you argue, you'll be taken down, or your partner will be put down quite easily. And therefore, it's important that you learn the cultures of these organizations and empower yourself to be able to lead and be part of that organization.
Thank you, Dr. Funda. I want to quickly read for you some of the beautiful messages that we have for you in the chat box from Octavia Manyama. Said, I just want to say thank you to Dr. Funda for the foundation laid. His former students, probably you can remember them. And then we have another one from Cherry from TUT, and said, thank you, Nick and Tom. Nick, I have known you for many years. You are so dedicated and passionate. You are so right. You do not have to be brilliant, rich, beautiful, perfect. You just have to care and want to make a difference. He mentioned that you approach life with so much energy, and you're an amazing lecturer and a true leader in conservation. You are conservation. So thank you so much for the beautiful messages. And Ones also mentioned, I'm so humbled to be there. Now, Remy, welcome, Johan. I see you raised your hand. You're welcome to ask your question or do a reflection. Thank you.
Thanks, Tian. Dr. Funda, we keep on knocking on your door because we keep on learning from you every time that you come in. Apologies, I see my light is a bit on the dark side here. We've been having a little debate in our WhatsApp team discussion about a question that one of our team members raised. And I want to reframe it a little bit and then ask the question. Many of the students here are aspiring to become rangers. Many of the TUT students tonight and the other students from all over Africa. So there's a possibility that they will genuinely deal with this situation. Many of the foot soldiers, the rangers, are coming from communities that are poor, that are driven by hunger, and the poachers are coming from the same community, and there are pressure on the rangers to become part of that. How do you deal with that? How do you protect them from that? And if they fall in that trap, is there any path to rehabilitation?
Johan, that's a very difficult question, but it's a lived experience. We recruit our rangers from local communities because, I mean, the ethical leaders in terms of skills, a ranger is going to take you maximum 6 weeks to develop a person to be a ranger. Therefore, you don't need academics. And therefore, we don't want to be relevant with the communities. We recruit from the local communities. Those rangers, when they are off, they go back into their community. Some of them are intimidated, and some of them, their families are intimidated, and you have to have a way of how do you deal with that. And I have rangers that have arrested their relatives in the park. And when they knock off, they go back to those communities. That's really integrity. And there are many ways of doing that. One is a strategy to protect them against those intimidations. In some parks, we have staff villages where most of our rangers, they live in staff villages. And in some areas, because there's a group of rangers that comes from a particular village, and the buddies system where you look after myself and I look after you when we're outside. It's something that we deal with that. And how do you make sure that your rangers are not involved in crime, are not intimidated to get involved in crime? This is very difficult. At one stage, we were thinking of having an amnesty because we know some of our people have been involved in wildlife crime, in poaching. And we arrested 2 of the rangers. And they confessed they gave us all the monies that they were paid by criminals. How do you deal with that? Do you arrest them, or you convert them into witnesses that have helped you to understand the way the criminals operate out there? And it's one of those difficult things that we have to face, Johan. And we, in that situation, we ended up converting them into state witnesses. And also we build a support system to support our rangers so that they don't get to the wrong side of the law. We do awareness into how crime is it can lead them into other things, into poverty. Because if you are getting a salary, look at unemployment outside the park. Outside the park, we've got 60% unemployment. The rangers, they don't want to be unemployed. They would like to get that income, and therefore we encourage that the rangers participate in initiatives that are trying to deal with the anti-poaching strategies in terms of really an awareness and empower them to make decisions. And also our training is not a soft training. And sometimes we play the games and where we want to pick up who is really vulnerable, because you can gauge people which are vulnerable. We've got tools that we use to measure, to look at vulnerabilities within our organization. There are a couple of areas that are vulnerable in terms of corruption in organizations. And therefore we identify those areas and make sure that those people are monitored. And we have even the so-called lie detector. In the olden days, is called now, with fancy word, is called integrity testing. We put our rangers through integrity testing before we employ them and while they are employed as well, so that we can understand how vulnerable we are and what's the level of deception or level of involvement our rangers are, and how do you deal with that. Unfortunately, you still have to come up with a scissor to cut the cancer in the system, and therefore we have to do that and arrest our own people, and it's something that we are not proud of, because it's an embarrassment where you arrest someone wearing a uniform like yourselves. And even recently we have arrested one guy that has poached 3 rhinos and injured about 4 rhinos. our employee in the organization. And we deal with those kind of things, Johan, which has, the criminals are clever, Johan. They don't recruit a very dodgy person. They look for a solid guy, so that a guy that you cannot suspect that he's involved. They are looking for those people, and therefore they are like us in terms of recruiting. They are recruiting the best into their pockets, and therefore we have to deal with all those kind of things going forward. And corruption is real, and we are dealing with it at different scales, and we're using different strategies, Johan.
Thank you so much. I ask you a difficult question because I know you're the man to answer it.
Okay.
I would like to ask you, I was listening to the leadership expert Simon Sinek the other day, and he was talking about something in AI that concerns him, and that is that we can now have access to so many easy answers, which is great because you can get things done very fast. But for instance, the difficulty that you would have experienced in writing up a master's degree thesis, you don't have to do anymore, so you don't have to go through the suffering because AI is going to help you along now. But at the same time, the value of that resilience that you built up is then lost. So I was just wondering, from your experience, what is the value in doing and completing hard things in your life? And that's my last question. Thank you.
Hard things, Johan, they need a serious commitment from, if you want to achieve. There's a saying in English, easy come, easy go. And if you work hard, you understand the value of what you have achieved, and also you don't want to lose that easily. And therefore, it's a commitment to take a journey that I'm gonna walk this path, and I know it's not gonna be easy to achieve, and you will receive all sort of I won't call it barriers, I would say obstacles. We don't have barriers in life. We put barriers in front of us. It's like in athletics, these are hurdles that you have to overcome, and in order to achieve good things in life. And you have to sweat blood and other sweat in order to achieve good things. I mean, we've got typical examples in our country. Nelson Mandela was in jail for 27 years, but he still believed that one day there will be freedom in South Africa. One day we'll be free, one day we'll be allowed to vote. That persistence, Johan, and belief that I'm going to do it, I will achieve it. You know, if you're going to put obstacles and, oh, this thing is only for Nicholus Funda, I cannot achieve this hard stuff. You are just putting your barrier. You are just limiting your scope. As I said in my discussion, that the sky is the limit. Don't put barriers in your life that I will never achieve hard stuff. Just tell yourself, it's all in your mind, Johan. If you tell yourself that I'm going to achieve this, irrespective of how long it's going to take, if it's going to take longer, I'm prepared to go that extra mile in order to achieve what I want to achieve in life. Difficult things are difficult to achieve, and so also they're expensive to find, and therefore I would say again, hard work in order to achieve difficult things in life. Easy come, easy go. You need to really sweat and try to get to the top. It's not easy, but it's doable.
Mm. Yes, thank you, Dr. Funda. I'm going to ask my last question as you give your last conclusion for tonight. And my last question is about, in your perspective, is leadership primarily a matter of a natural talent, or is it deliberate development that happens along the process, or is it influenced by the system and the structure that is in existence? You know, as are leaders born, or are they created? And probably a sub-question to that. What advice would you give a young professional who feel intimidated into stepping into leadership roles? I think even Tom can also, after you, can also share with us his perspective. Yes, thank you.
My answer is all of the above, all what you have mentioned. We have seen people that are put in leadership position that are not leaders. We have seen leaders being developed to be leaders. There are some traits or genes that sometimes demonstrate that so and so is a leader. Even at a lower level, you can pick up that so and so is a leader, and because they are characteristic, they are attributes of a leader, and that you can identify earlier on, and you can develop. And that's one way of doing it, where you expect the organization to develop leadership. But at the same time, individuals can develop their own leadership skills. A friend of mine, he always said, if you are over 21, you have choices. We have choices to drink alcohol the whole day and forget about work. That's a choice that we have made, or get into drugs. That's a choice we have made. No one has forced us to get into such an environment. You're over 21, you've made choices. I think sometimes leadership is all about choices. And who are you associating yourselves with, and who is your role model? And do you have any role model that you want to look at? And also are you prepared to walk an extra mile as a leader? Are you building yourself? I read broadly at my level. I mean, I understand a little bit about economics and finance and biology and politics and to broaden my scope, because when you are a leader, you have to make decisions that might need some different expertise in order to make a decision that will be suitable and be sound for a long time. And also the ability to recognize that you're also a human being, you make mistakes. But what is important as a leader is to learn from those mistakes and avoid them in the future. I will give it to Tom and hear what he's going to say about it. He's still young, he might have better views about leadership.
Yes. Tom, please share with us, do you believe leaders are born or they are created?
So, Diane, that's a very interesting question. There was a research that was conducted to find out really critically how many people are really born leaders. And the findings revealed that only 10% of the leaders that we do have actually natural born leaders. But how do you get to be part of the 10? Because you can't really decide what you're born to be. So I think the whole point I get from the entire thing is that all those questions, all those aspects you mentioned can contribute to being a leader. But the most important thing for me is to be deliberate, because you may not be sure that you may be born a leader. Even those people we think are born leaders also need to be improved. No one was born knowing how to use computers, for example, but you might need to lead a team that uses computers, so you might need to learn some of those things. So I think there is need to be deliberate on what exactly you want to be, the kind of leader you want to be, and the kind of space you want to be in. That is my take.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Tom and Dr. Nick Funda, for a wonderful presentation. Now, as we conclude tonight's session, I want to welcome Dr. Cherry Ogilvy to do a reflection or give us some remarks as well from TUT.
Hi, Nick. Hi, Tom. Nick, you know me very well. I'm the one that always praises you, because you must understand you have made so many students who they are today. You have molded students. You are a true leader. And Nick, I'm privileged to know you. I've learned a hell of a lot from you, and I've seen you grow. We worked side by side at TUT. And all what I can say is thank you, Nick. Thank you for being so honest. Thank you, Nick, for calling a spade a spade. And I would also like to say thank you, Nick, for kicking my butt some days. Because some days I truly needed it. Because without your leadership and guidance, a person can easily lose their way.
Sure.
And you kept me on that pathway, Nick. Thank you so much. And Tom, I would really like to get to know you better because from listening to your talk tonight, you touched my soul. You are a great person, and I would like to thank both of you tonight. I had 40 odd TUT students on board tonight, Nick, and you haven't stopped making a difference in people's lives. And please never do stop. And Tom, the same message applies to you. Please never stop. You spoke with your heart. I believe in the three H's: head, hands, and heart. And tonight, you touched two of those. And I would really like to get to know you, Tom, better. Nick's part of our advisory board committee at TUT as well. And Tom, please don't become distant. Keep working on this, and you are amazing as well. But thanks to both of you. Yeah, short and sweet. Thanks, Diane. And thank you, Nick. Always love you and always will.
Thank you, Dr. Ogilvy. It's good to see my former students as well commenting on the side. Is really an achievement. Thank you to the conveners.
Yes. Thank you, everyone, for making this evening talk so wonderful and enjoyable and very interactive. Special pros to our guest speaker, Dr. Nick Funda and Mr. Tom. Thank you for sacrificing yourself. I know you're in New Zealand for the moment and is in the middle of the night, 4 a.m., I believe. Thank you for sacrificing to be with us tonight. And it was really enjoyable to host and get to learn more about leadership and if leaders are born or created. But I think you heard from our speakers that you can own your space, can deliberately develop yourself along the way and be the person that you want to be. The sky is the limit. So thank you, everyone. Thank you to the team of Share Screen Africa. Let's call it a night. Bye-bye. Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.